We're here. Don't be afraid.
The house was silent. Before they even arrived, the rescue team had been warned. 30 dogs lived here. None had seen the outside world in years. Animal control and a local humane society joined forces that morning. No sirens, no shouting. Just gloves, flashlights, and quiet determination. When the officers stepped inside, the air burned their throats. The smell of ammonia and waste was overwhelming. Cages were stacked like shelves, some rusted shut, some collapsed under their own weight. Tiny eyes blinked from the shadows, unsure whether the light meant danger or freedom. And there, at the back of the hallway, was the German shepherd. He didn't growl, he didn't bark. He just stood there, frozen between fear and disbelief. He had learned that stillness was safer than hope. When the rescuers opened the first cage, a chorus of low whimpers filled the room. Some dogs pressed themselves into corners. Others barked frantically, blinded by the sudden light. By the end of the day, 29 dogs had been carried out. Most were underweight, some blind from neglect. Several were too weak to stand. Each was tagged, photographed, and loaded into separate vans bound for different shelters across the state. But the shepherd, the team wrote severe shutdown behavior beside his number. He hadn't moved since they arrived. It took nearly 20 minutes before he let them touch him. Every time the metal latch clicked, he flinched. He had learned that sound meant pain. So they waited with him, quietly, patiently, until he took one small step forward. He lowered his head, not resisting, not trusting, just surrendering. That's how he became the last dog to leave that house. They named him Case 17 on the intake sheet. Later he would have a name. When they carried him outside, sunlight hit his fur for the first time in years. He stopped at the doorway, eyes squinting at the brightness. Grass moved in the wind. Cars passed. The world hummed with sounds he hadn't heard in years. The rescuer paused. "It's okay, boy," he whispered. "You're safe now." He didn't move. But for the first time, he didn't back away either. At the county shelter, they gave him a name: Ranger. Day 1, he refused food. Day 2, he refused to leave the kennel. By the end of the week, a volunteer named Ben began sitting by his cage every afternoon, trying to talk. Not training, not coaxing, just existing beside him. Sometimes he'd slide his hand under the gate, palm up. Ranger would sniff and retreat. Until one day he didn't. He rested his chin on Ben's fingers, soft, trembling, uncertain. That was the first real sign that Ranger wanted to live again. Ben brought him a harness, a simple blue one. Ranger watched as he clipped it around his chest. His muscles tensed, expecting it to hurt, but it didn't. They walked 3 steps down the hallway, then stopped. Tail low, but wagging once. Other volunteers paused to watch. To anyone else, it was nothing. To Ranger, it was everything. Proof that he could move without pain. It was a Sunday morning when they tried again, the real walk. The sky was overcast, dew covered the grass. Ben opened the gate, leash in hand. Ranger hesitated at the edge of the ramp. Wind brushed through his fur, carrying the scent of open fields. One paw touched the ground, then another. He lowered his head, sniffed the earth, blinked into the light, and exhaled. For the first time, he wasn't trapped. Ben whispered, "You're free now, Ranger." He took a few uncertain steps forward, then looked back, and his tail, the same tail that hadn't wagged in months, began to move. Weeks passed. Ranger learned the routine: breakfast, short walks, longer walks. He greeted Ben with a soft bark each morning. One afternoon, a couple visited the shelter. They had lost their senior shepherd months earlier. Ranger approached slowly, then sat beside them, paw resting on the man's shoe. The man smiled through tears. "He reminds me of our old boy." A week later, Ranger left the shelter, not in a crate, but on a leash, walking between them head high. And when they reached their home, he did something he had never done before. He ran. Not far, not fast, just enough to feel the wind on his face. He finally felt freedom. Most of the 30 dogs rescued that day found homes, some quickly, some after months of care. Ranger's recovery took the longest, but sometimes the slowest steps are the strongest ones. If stories like Ranger's remind you that every rescue deserves a second chance, help share his walk of freedom. Like, share, and subscribe to Forever Stories, where every paw print tells a story of hope.